Hello, and welcome to Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. We want to keep shining a light on rugby that is not shown in the mainstream media. I am Carl, and thanks for joining us on the next instalment of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the pod and keep in touch with us on our social media platforms. As I keep mentioning, a lot of these pods are pre-recorded at the minute because I'm out and about. So to keep the pod moving, we've done that as much as possible, but a lot of the opinions and discussions may have played out in real time, so we still get to see the raw opinions of the amazing guests that we've had. This week we have Charlie Beech on, who's the founder of Front Row Support and is also leading the charge on supporting professional sports people on their exits from their relevant games. We get to discuss the amazing career Charlie had and also the truth about decisions made at crucial points in his career, and also the raw values of what it costs to potentially go up and down the leagues of rugby at his time of his career as well. So it's great to see and discuss where that is and why a lot of players have to do a lot of other things extra. We really get to put the world to rights on this one, so let's just get on with another great rugby chat.
Right, this week we've got Charlie Beech on. He's trying to give me a bit of a competition for a beard off in this one today with the pathetic attempts that we've had in previous pods. Charlie, thanks for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. For those that don't know, could you give us a bit of a download of your rugby journey, where you've been, what you've done, what you've seen, and then we can sort of go from there, mate, really.
So I'm still playing now. I started about 20 years ago. Northampton Saints was my first club.
Yeah.
On the back of playing sort of all England age groups, sort of 16 through 20. So I played all over the place with them. Saints was my first club. London Wasps after that. Brief spell out in New Zealand in the middle of that as well. So I had a season out there learning some bits. Through to Bath, on to Leeds, and then sort of a couple other clubs on the way through. And I'm now semi-pro out at Hull. So yeah, been 20 odd years playing pro at different levels.
Nice. So you've probably come across some half-decent players in your time. Who's the best player you played with then?
Oh, it's a fun one. So obviously when you're a prop, it's like, well, it's fun, isn't it? 'Cause in most positions, you sort of pick the guy that's your number in another team or someone who's your position. But when you're a prop, it's usually the guys you're up against.
Yeah.
So you're looking at like monster tight ends. And the thing I always say to people was when because obviously you start as an academy boy, didn't you? So like, you know, you're young lads running around doing your bits. And
yeah.
The year when I stepped up in the first team while I was playing for Wasps back when they were in London, and basically went in and said, right, I want this money is what I want. I wanted a first team contract and this sort of money. And they were like, yeah, not sure. Like, you know, we've got a few other bits going. Like they'd spent all their salary cap, right? So they were trying to squeeze me in, and I wasn't asking for stupid money, but I was asking for more than I was on. And I was like, right. And I had 3 weeks. They were like, right, you've got 3 weeks, you've got 3 games, let's see how you get on. And first week was against Gloucester.
Yeah.
Back when they had Greg Somerville playing for them, at the time, the All Black prop. So I had a week against him.
Yeah.
Following week we played Saracens, and I had Census Johnson, who's one of the biggest smart blokes you've ever seen in your entire life. And then the third week I played against Newcastle, and I had Carl Heyman. So it was like week 1 technique, week 2 power, power and technique. The best I can say against Heyman was I held my shape while he used the human plough. But I got a contract at the end of it, so I must have done right. That's my in terms of props, that's sort of my like baptism of fire, very much literally. So yeah, good fun.
So you basically got a contract off the back of not being folded up like a deck chair, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. I came out the end of it. I think I'd broken a few bones and my own bones, not anybody else's. I survived. I think the fact I walked off after the game, and they're like, yeah, we'll do.
Yeah, walking off with all your bags, all your bones in a bag. Brilliant. So obviously on your journey through pro rugby, you've obviously you've had a bit of a tour around. Was that down to preference, or was that down to, as you said, positional options being available and contracts and stuff like that? Because obviously on the pods, we like to talk about that there's no depth within the English game. Over in France, you've got sort of 4 pro leagues. Were you trying to have to sort of go around the Premiership and get what was available because there wasn't the option in the Championship when you wanted to be at that top level?
It was a funny one. I mean, sort of Northampton, I left. They went down the year I left, and I'd say I probably moved out of naivety because I don't things what they were. So my first contract was for £6,000, which is like nothing, like £500 a month pocket money.
Oh wow!
So I meant so it was literally like nothing. So I was on that, something similar to that the second year. Third year it was supposed to step up, so I never really got to my third year. They got relegated, and they wanted me to stay. But then Wasp moved in and offered triple the money. So I was like, well, that's absolutely amazing. Like, clearly this is me off to the big time sort of thing. So moved down to Wasp.
Yeah. Didn't
really calculate the fact that in Northampton, when you're being given a house and your food and your rent's paid for and that £500 a month goes a hell of a lot further than a decent sum of money down in London because it just got hoovered. There were other reasons behind it, but when you go down there and you meet, Craig Dowd is going to be your forwards coach, like All Black legend, and you get to meet some of the guys. Because obviously at the time, Wasp probably had 15 internationals in their starting 15. It was absolutely insane. So it was like, that's a great club to go to. But so money turned my head, London turned my head, went down and moved there. Left Wasps 4 years later. Some of it was to do with family. Some of it was to do with sort of going around helping with that. Some of it was, like you say, the opportunity. I think sometimes it's hard being a first-team player where you're an academy lad because you never quite lose that like, oh, he's the young lad proving himself. It's like you sort of always held back. But again, I'm trying to remember whether Wasps asked me to stay or not. But Bath was a great option. And again, sort of moving down there to work with some great people like Neil Hatley was moving down there, and so Dave Flatman was there at the time, and there's some real good. And I've always loved Bath. Bath's a glorious place to be, to live, to play. So I was like, I'm more than happy to move down there. And then there it was game time. So I left there. To be honest, I played 40 games in 2 seasons, which is pretty much every game. But I was on the bench in all of them, bar about 2 or 3. And I was like, I want to establish myself as like a match starter.
Yeah.
And like you say, the only way I could do that at the time without that sort of pedigree of having started many more games, other than cherry picking maybe a team that was struggling for a loose head, it was like if you drop a league, and then you get to start. So Bath offered me out on loan to Leeds for a while. Absolutely loved it. I got to start, play starting rugby. So went there and never left really. So I bounced around other clubs sort of on my way out to retirement, but Leeds was kind of my last sort of main club. And played over 100 games for them, started most of them, had a great time, just never really then, my priorities changed in life. I never really then sort of chased going back up into the Premiership. It was never really on the cards for me, didn't really want it at that point. I had kids and things to be looking after and look more than this. But it's been hell of a
Do you think? Yeah. Do you think that obviously without that option to diversify, dropping down, still making a salary of it, a proper salary that you would sort of target in? Do you think that also loses a lot of other players that we've probably lost within the system? We had Joe Batley on, who's a pro at Bristol at the minute, and he was saying that obviously he got diagnosed with cancer when he was 21, when he was at Bristol when they were in the Championship. So they managed to look after him. He then went to Worcester, and then Worcester went pop just after he joined. So he's back at Bristol now. But he was saying that there's a lot of lads that after Worcester went pop, there was 150 players potentially that become back available in the pool when everyone finally went pop. He said a lot of them have actually just walked away from the game because they can't. Because they're at a certain age bracket, they can't drop down to make a salary in that. They're probably not. I think one of them's gone over to America to get his payday. So I just don't understand, as the home of rugby, why we haven't got that level of depth. And as you said about Wasps as well, whether they asked you to stay, I think it was quite well recorded by Haskell as well that he was constantly he would have a season, and then they would say, yeah, you're going to get more money, and then they'd come in with a low ball offer to try and because they just couldn't never balance the books. Is that literally the state of English rugby?
Yeah, in short, it is. It's something that, a big part of what I'm doing now is that athlete transition piece, sort of helping the lads out when, I'm not just tied to rugby, not just tied to blokes, but I said to say lads because it's just where we run, but like looking after people after they've retired and where they go and how they do it. And, a lot of that stems from the fact that we're not being looked after while we're playing. There's not the money in the game that there should be. And, don't get me wrong, I'm fully aware that there's other people that turn up, but I was at the Gloucester game at Tottenham a couple of weeks back when they played the what was the Natal Sharks. I think it's Hollywood Bets Sharks now. Kingsholm holds what, 16,000 people around that. There must have been at least 30,000 Gloucester.
Something like that,
yeah. There's about 30,000 people wearing red and white sat in London, and you'll go in.
Yeah.
So it's don't get me wrong, some of them will just be rugby fans sat in London and pulled a red and white shirt on. I'm absolutely sure. But the fact that you can take a game across the width of the country, put it somewhere else, and pretty much double the home attendance, it's like, you can't tell me there's not the interest. It's just that the game, it's not a commercial entity. Like, every club is reliant on, sponsors, owners who are just happy to pour money in because they love the game. Like, there's not, when you look at the numbers of, bums on seats, how many they can get on the seats, what they're spending, how they're doing it. Most clubs don't own their own grounds. So even if they do have 20,000 people through the door, they ain't getting most of the money from the tickets. Like, it's an horrible state. And a lot of that, in my mind, sits with, you look at the RFU minimum criteria stuff, most of the teams in the Premiership don't meet it. And they wonder why it's not working. It's like, well, because your financial viability model don't even apply to most of the people in your top flight. I think they're literally banking entirely on TV money, TV rights, and that's why they've done away with the whole promotion relegation bit to get a bit of stability in there so that the TV know they're working with. So, to me, it needs redressing because, when you look at how strong, like you say, it's the home of rugby, right? We've got, the public school system, there is more than enough money in public schools and the people that play it, that traditionally where a lot of professional rugby players come from. I was a club rugby boy that got picked up into the public school system. I was a state school boy at GCSE level. When I played England 16s, there was a squad of about 24, and I was one of 4 that was state school as opposed to public school. But if you look at the strength of the club game, the local club game, there's local rugby union clubs absolutely everywhere. There's sponsors everywhere. There's more than enough support and money that managed right. This game should be huge. It's never going to rival football in this country, and I wouldn't expect it to, but it could be a lot closer. Yeah, so without that there's not, it's like I say, with Worcester, Cecil Duckworth was the guy that used to pay all the money in. He died, his sons didn't want it, the whole thing went. Wasps never had an owner, never had a home ground. That went. Obviously, Irish went. Jersey, they were probably paying rent at. Jersey was a fuck when it went. But again, the money out in Jersey is a different ball game. You get to a point, you say there's only 10 teams left. And even if, squad size of 40, that's only 400 people playing it. There's a lot more than that playing professional rugby. Ealing have got some cash in the champ, but other than that, there's not a lot of jobs, as you say, when a club goes bust. It's like, it's just not the room for it. They should be, but they're in.
Yeah, but I think that's so. Obviously, we're recording this a little bit ahead of time for people that are listening. Yesterday, which was Monday, the 3rd of June, they chucked out a statement to all championship clubs, and the RFU have actually tried to strong arm all of the championship clubs into signing an agreement to only receive £4 million a year to be shared between all of the championship clubs. And they're offering, the only way for them to be promoted is by a playoff, which has obviously become so wide, the gap's been so wide, it's just never going to be closed because of that. They're on about distributing 35 million between the 10 clubs, the Premiership clubs. on top. So they're basically ring fencing and protecting that at the detriment of Championship rugby. But in the statement that they've released, they've also said they're trying to do it to grow the game. How the fuck is £4 million being shared between 12 Championship teams going to grow the game?
The RFU, to me, needs
just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't. I really don't. Because there was a point, I think, forgive me if I get the numbers wrong, but there was a point where it was something like 200 grand a year went to the champ clubs. This was a few years back, so it was like they knew what they were getting every year, based their budgets on it, and then it was like overnight.
Yeah,
it was like
I think that was around the 2015, 2017 announcement, wasn't it?
Yeah, around then. And suddenly they just went, actually next year
2015, 2017, they announced,
Yeah, they literally just dumped it by more than half overnight, no warning, and near the end of the season. So like, contracts had already been agreed, so they had to go back and completely rip up a lot of them. There's only really, like I say, Ealing are pretty much the only team left in the champ that are pro. I know Donny tried to be, but I know what they're paying some of the players, and it's not a professional wage at all. When you kind of go in, there's just not any desire from the top to have anything other than this like Super League style. This is our Premiership. These are the only people we're bothered about. The RFU should just take them and be their governing body and sod off and let the rest of us look after actual proper English rugby or British rugby, frankly, because it's all, so the Irish system works, but the Welsh have had the top players robbed for years. The Scots, I know, have got a couple of teams. Border Reavers was still a thing when I was coming through, and then they fell over. Like, the RPA's more or less entirely with the RFU now as well, which is they've sort of been endorsed by and hired out of, and it's just the whole thing stinks to me. And I'm sat there as a lad as those I found rugby at the age of 6, and it's very much sort of paved the way for my entire life. Like I ended up at an amazing school as a rugby. Like I met my family through rugby. I've met friend. Rugby's been everything to me, and it's like it's just watching it being mismanaged by people and knowing there's not a lot you can do about it. Really, I find really frustrating. Which again is part of why I do what I do now, because it's that kind of trying to reform things from the bottom and sort of make it strong enough at the bottom that the top can say and do what they want, and hopefully we can sort of withstand it and offer some support in a different way. Really, so, a few axes to grind with the RFU.
Do you feel you got paid what you should have for putting your body on the line for 20 odd years in the game?
It's a funny one, right? Because my older brother was a pro footballer, right? And when I joined Northampton, I was. So me and him, so there was a point where we were earning the same money, but he was playing for St Albans, who were whatever league they were in down the ranks at the time, and he was literally training once a week and playing on Saturday. I was training full time against some absolute monsters, because when I was at Northampton, you had just from the England team alone, you had Steve Thompson, Ben Cohen, Matt Dawson, Paul Grayson. You had some of the biggest people I've seen in my life playing in the who's cast of who I've been around is insane. Like Carlos Spencer was playing 10, Bruce Rayhana at 15, like Corner Krieger joined the year after from South Africa, absolute mutant of a human being, like just big people. And I'm this 18-year-old prop. You play a Monday night game for the second team. You're first thing Tuesday morning holding a tackle bag, getting run into at full tilt by a giant Tongan prop. It was tough, right? And you just literally got flogged within an inch of your life. You pick yourself back up and I'm earning the same money as my brother, who's banging a few goals in that weekend and having a bit of a giggle.
Yeah,
it's one of those things. It's like could I have negotiated harder? Could I have done better? Could I have been a better player? All these things argue around, but I don't think I was hard done by. There were plenty of others around me who I thought were earning very good money for what they should have been. And there were lads out there who weren't earning anywhere near enough.
Yeah.
But I was just people, and they say to you, you retired from professional rugby. Why did you retire? I said, because I got to a point where I was being paid 30 grand a year and dealing with some horrible big people in the championship. Because it's no... Like you say, the gulf almost between the two is what it is, but it's more from like a a depth of squad thing, because if you look at some of the boys playing in the English Championship, when I used to play against, Donny was my last club. When I used to play against Donny, and you're running against people like Rory Pittman, Matt Challoner, Latu McAfee, who were just, lovely fellas, but horrible human beings on a rugby field, like big blokes who knew how to move, and it just hurt. And it was like, I can get this sat in an office ringing people for a living, and it hurts less. So you get to that point, you kind of go, and it's not the same thing, but people hear pro sport and imagine you're all on six-figure contracts. And I was like, I never hit a six-figure contract. Like, 20 years in a game, playing around and amongst some of the biggest names in the sport, and I never got that far up. And like I say, I played best part of 80 games in the Premiership, so I wasn't sort of an also-ran. I wasn't a top name, but I wasn't an also-ran. It's an interesting. I could have stood to have been paid more, but more for my ego, I think. But I think there were lads out there getting absolutely stoned. When you look at the Championship monies and the lower clubs and what they pay people, it's awful. It needs redressing, mate, top to bottom, in my mind.
So obviously, you did mention on there. So you have now you founded Front Row Support. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you give everyone a clue in of what that does and how you're able to support? Is it current pros or pros on their exit plan, and then pros that have retired recently, etc.?
So long term, the idea is it's sort of a holistic approach to all of it, because to me, the lads like me who've left, are leaving, are struggling to leave, or who are carrying on playing long after they should because they're worried monies aren't what they're going to be when they need. Monies aren't going to be what they need when they leave, and all that sort of thing. The only way you address that is by getting to the lads at the beginning of their careers and getting them interested in things. Now, there's always been stuff on offer, but it's usually been in like, we'll get this qualification route. So you get these, open uni offers, or a couple of unis will be quite flexible. Oh. Best will in the world, it's doable. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it's not really what it's not how a lot of us are wired. And it's not that kind of practical, hands-on approach that a lot of us like to take. So, long term, it's looking at all of it. What Front Row Support does principally is the missions athlete transition, supporting that move into the next life almost. But the way we do it is sort of like an events and networking business. So the whole idea being, if I build a big enough business network, and everything we do sports themed, everything's attached to sports clubs, so it's not limited to rugby or rugby union. I've got plenty of rugby league. We've had weightlifters, we've had all sorts sort of in and through. We attach ourselves to local clubs, so we work with grassroots as well as pro clubs, and all things like sourcing sponsorship backwards and forwards as well. So we're sort of trying to commercialise the game at lower levels to provide more opportunities for people to get involved. And building a big enough business network that these sports people have somewhere to go. So when they're looking for a job, when they're thinking about retirement, when they're doing this, it's all very well having a beautifully written CV or, that qualification. But if you've been coming down to this sort of networking do once a month and meeting, Adrian Hogarth, who sources cars for a living, and you want to be a car salesperson, it's like, Adrian already knows you, Adrian already likes you, he's already done a bit of work with you, you've already put some of your mates in his direction. He's already offering you a job before you've even left. You've got some work experience, so we can provide that. We kind of, the thing with pro sport is a very bespoke environment. Like, everything's built around you being the best player you can be. But all the solutions afterwards seem to be very much, we've got a solution, we're going to crowbar you in to fit that solution. We're trying to go at it from the other direction. So it's sitting down with lads and going, right, what do you want to do? Do you want to run a business? And here's some business advisors. Here's this sort of small business we've got on the side that you can run and practice, and you can do bits with. If you want a job, we can introduce you some recruiters, we can introduce you some people here. Like, we can sort of tailor the solution to the individual. So obviously, the more businesses I know, the more businesses in the network, the more businesses attending the events, the more opportunities we've got to help lads out and lads out and sort of help them on their way. So
brilliant. It's as you said, like, not everyone learns in the same way. So the Open University might work for some, because I think a lot of them sort of make use of that throughout their career? Because is it available to most pros throughout to make sure that they're ready for the end of their career?
Yeah, Open Uni is literally what it says on the tin. It's open, so people can get on it. And there's some fantastic people around it. There's a few organisations trying to help. There's a woman, Carol Davies, who's the mother of Charlie Davies, the old Wasps and Wales scrum half. Who's been trying to find people degrees in various things for years, and supports them through it and helps them with the learnings. Obviously, university style learning is very different from sort of school style stuff. But to me, like I say, I've been in many a coach's office. I think many a sports person identifies with being in a coach's office and being told, we're not picking you, we're picking them because they're more experienced than you. And it's like, it's exactly the same thing when you go for a job interview. You can have the degree, you can have the qualifications, and they're like, right, but what work in this area have you done? You're like, well, I've been a rugby player for 15 years. And they're like, yeah, we need someone that's done this for at least 3 years. Yeah. So it's like, well, all right, but if I can get you doing it, I've been doing it alongside my rugby career for 5 years. Suddenly it's like, right, this kid's got what we need. You can pick him up. So that's my angle on it. That sort of hands-on experience, because that's what what lights hirers up when people are looking to give jobs. If you can show a couple of years of relevant work experience, you're much more employable in my mind than any level of degree or qualification. So.
Oh yeah, it's like when kids are having to turn up for their first job interview now, they want 21 years worth of experience. When they're 19 or something like that, it's just crazy out there at the minute.
Yeah, we need 10 years of relevant work experience with AI, and you're like, AI's only been around for 2 years.
I've never been a pro and stuff. Is there much of a pension? Is there much of a setup for financial support after the game's ended? Like, if you're in the forces, you get a pension that's index linked back to what the salary would have increased, etc. Is that in place in rugby, or once you retire, that's it, it's game over? You're self-employed, sorry mate, but you've got to look after yourself.
Like when auto enrollment came in, they we had to have pensions. So if you're a professional, they provide you with a pension. So you did have something, but it wasn't, like you say, like an armed forces one that was specifically for people. It was literally just a standard pension. They just put you on a pension scheme and ran it all legally, like as they needed to, but there was no special consideration. There are plenty of financial advisors who start circling around sports clubs because they know that there's people there that are going to need the help. I think when they realise just how much the average rugby player is on, they tend to move on to football. But there's plenty sort of
disappear.
Well, it's the thing, isn't it? Like, when you're earning however many percent, if it's not a rather large number that you're earning a percentage of, it's not paying your bills. So, a good. I mean, taken away from financial services, but if you look at an average agent, when you've got like a playing agent, and 3 to 5% is what it was when I was going through. And if you look at a footballer who's on $100,000 a week, 3 to 5% is looking all right. So you as a football agent could have one or two players. Yeah, so you have one player, maybe one in the backup just in case. That's paying you a lovely wage, and you can really spend your lifetime looking after those two lads. I'm down in London earning, $40,000 a year. My 3 to 5% is not earning. So I'm one of 40 lads that one agent's looking after to make up the difference. So you don't get the same level of service. So it's going to be the same with financial advisors, same with all sorts. So the money speaks round. But I'm doing a bit of work at the minute with the Armed Forces Covenant. It's been something that someone sort of highlighted to me. I think it's an amazing thing, and I think it's absolutely right. And while at no point will I ever sit here and say that the sporting field is sort of key to the country or as dangerous as the military is, because it absolutely isn't, and I've not got ideas above the station.
Yeah.
At the same time, we are doing something that's very dangerous. We are doing something that's short-lived, and we do it for the entertainment of others. We do it for other people's enjoyment. So you kind of go, at the end of that, there should be some sort of aftercare system. There should be some kind of financial even if it's just support, I don't expect the government to bump into it because we're not doing something for the country, but like the governing body itself, the RFU should be looking into it. Nothing.
A lot of armed forces personnel and veterans are that's it. They might get a pension, but nobody's dealing with the rest of the fallout from the stuff they have to do and see. So, there is no aftercare for a lot of professions that are utilised in that. Like my mum's a nurse. She retired about a year or two ago now. She was in the Navy beforehand, so obviously she's probably seen a fair bit. But she's having to deal with her own stuff as well, and there is a certain level of aftercare, but it's only up to a certain amount. And then once that you've used that allocated amount, you're going to have to pay for yourself. Like, hold on a minute, you've done this amount of return of service. Then you think, I get it. Everywhere's got funding issues. It's just how's the whole bubble got to come together? Because it's not just like it's one profession that's sort of having that problem. Do you think potentially getting everyone round the table, like as you said, if you manage to get the armed forces and sporting professions and the nurses and the police and all of those professions that sort of come to a natural end, and there's a bit of a scrap heap without a lack of a better word potentially. Do you think if they all were able to get together, they could potentially pull resources?
I think it'd be a lovely thing. I think it's something I'd be very keen to sort of get involved with. I mean, I've coached the Yorkshire Ambulance Service, so I know what they go through. As I say, I'm doing a bit with the military, some retired military personnel, not working with them direct. Like they're not part of front row, but I'm working with them alongside them. And there's it's as you say, it's the career, the way you do what you do, and then suddenly, because the pension's lined up to look after the people in the sort of normal working fields, right? So you finish work, you retire, and your pension kicks in, so you're looked after. It's those of us that have to retire in your mid-30s who go, and there's limited sympathy for the sports people, I think, because people say, you earned it all when you were younger, or you had that opportunity and you got to do the thing of your dreams, and now you're moaning about it, and you kind of going, I get that perspective. I'm not saying it's entirely wrong, like the risk going in, but I just think I say the risk going in. I think if you knew exactly how long your career could be and you could plan around it, it's one thing. If you had everything set up around it, you knew there was care afterwards, you could. I think we all went in with a degree of like, we're going to earn loads of money and then we'll be fine at the end because we'll have done something with it. And then you never actually earn that loads of money.
Yeah.
And then, the whole thing falls apart. And like I say, suddenly you're stuck. I'm 36 and well overweight, still playing a game. And I love playing, don't get me wrong. But, I should have been moved out of pasture a long time ago with new lads coming up on the way through. And I shouldn't have felt sort of trapped to kind of carry on playing. Like, my current club look after me very well. I've no complaints whatsoever. Like, they're good people. I love what I do, but there should be 3-4 young lads steaming up through, ready to take my place, and there should be, an RFU central kind of. You've played this number of years, looking after us now. Chuck our balances up. Here's something to make sure you're all right until such time that your pension kicks. Or like you say, at least leave you on the medical insurance.
Yeah, it's just there's got to be something in there. Like there's is it fair in saying you've probably got 10 years as a pro, realistically in the current 10, climate is potentially 10 maybe 12 years.
Yeah, depends when that is, how that runs around. Depends on position. And you have to be very lucky that you don't get injured out or just bad luck in between the two. But I mean, if you look at wingers will come through early, 17, 18, but they'll be retiring early 30s because their pace is gone. Yeah. Props last a lot longer because we start a lot later. We come through at 18, but we're then held back for a couple of years while we get up to strength and get ready. Yeah. But I'm not far away from pushing 40, and then it's like, right, why am I still doing this? So we'll last a bit longer, but we've not started as soon. So, you're looking sort of 10, 15, depending on position. But all of us are gone by 40. You know, like there's you can find the odd exception, but not many.
But obviously, you've probably got maybe 8 to 10 years at the top, say in the Prem, and then you're having to sort of filter your way down through the leagues potentially at a hell of a lot less of a rate than what you were on, having to adapt that alongside another job. It's obviously with football, there's still players that are probably 34, 35, so they're able to, as you say, go and make that big dollar, usually when they're younger, as long as they're picked up at the right time. I'm a Pompey fan, so they've just got promoted to the Championship. League One, they were paying players maybe $5-6 a week, sort of the top end of the players in the team. I think the bottom end were getting $1 or $2 a week, so still the six figures. Those players that aren't there in rugby, there's not many players, as you said, that if you were on $6 when you sort of come in as an academy player or whatever, if that was, as you said, from a prop, if you're on $6 from when you're 18 to 21 before they probably tot you out into the first team because they think you've sort of got the dad strength, you're ready to play in the big boy leagues. You then maybe jump to $40, depending on where you are, 30, $40 for 8 to 10 years at the Premiership. That's $400 roughly that you've made, $400 or $500 in total. And then you're probably going to have to drop to maybe low 20s roughly to probably carry on around in the Championship, maybe sort of 30, depends if you get a decent deal.
Yeah, not even that anymore in the champs.
Really?
I don't know what Ealing are paying, but other than that, most as I say, the clubs that were playing full time at that point, most of them were if you're earning 20, you were doing all right. And it's got worse, because obviously, like I say, funding's been cut, COVID's happened between the two. Like it's not full time anymore outside the Premiership. Like I say, other than Ealing, I know Donny officially are, but I know what's going on around different bits with that. And I know some of the lads and how big the squad is, all that sort of thing. Like it's not a proper full time wage. To me, if you can't live on it, it's not a full time wage, right? But it's like that ain't full time wage.
No.
So like you say, so you play Premiership as long as you bloody can. If you've got an international cap, you'll be earning six figures because that's kind of the rule, unofficial rule.
Yeah.
But other than that, you're aiming as long as you can because once you're gone, you're gone. And it's like you say, you're halving your wages easy just to drop down the league. So the only way that's in any way sustainable is if you go
and the intensity's probably gone up a level as well, though.
That's a big heavy
so
boys.
You drop down a level, and there's probably some even more evil, some evil bastards down there that do not give a fuck and willing to put it on you.
You've got all the young lads who are trying to prove a point so they can get into the Premiership. You've got all the lads in the middle who feel like they should have been in the Premiership but never quite got the chance. So they've got a bit of a chip on the shoulder. And you've got all the old boys who've been in the Premiership. And like you say, just don't give a fuck now and just out there to have a good time and do what they need to do. So it's a horrible league. I mean, I love it, the Championship. It's a horrible league. Like, I mean, you play hard. It's not let's drop a level and be a big fish in a small pond. It's let's drop a level and get my head kicked in. Like it's
no sunshine and roses league. It's they're there to put it on you.
As I say, I was there for a number of years and I love it, but it's tough. Like you learn a few bits. The moment you're there, the only way it's really truly sustainable is if you go semi-pro and you get a job doing something else, and then that just tops you up at the weekend. And it's like, as you say, football, you can go down to fourth league and you're still earning more than the money. And it's like, but rugby's not got that luxury.
Well, it has in France. That's the thing. Like France have got 4 pro leagues. You've got international players still running around in the fourth division of pro rugby in France. Yeah. And in the home of rugby, we can't even sustain a Premiership. It's obviously Wales, the Welsh regions are struggling. Ireland have got it pretty much pinned, to be fair. I think they've done really well with how they've sort of secured that provinces. Yeah. Scotland, obviously, they've got the 2 teams. They did have a third team up there that obviously fell by the wayside. So I think that's probably helped that they're only down to 2. So they're able to absorb the resource. I just don't understand why the URC's had to now add in the South African teams. Like, okay, it's exciting to see some of it, but those rumours are on about chucking Japan in and stuff like that, and you think, hold on a minute, these clubs can barely pay their lads properly, let alone travel a whole team across to Japan for an away day and stuff, and then all the fans on top of it. It's just bonkers. Like, how's that going to improve the reach of the game and improve players getting paid what they should be earning?
The whole thing for me stems from a complete sort of disjoint between the local game, the grassroots game, and the Premiership at the top end. I think the RFU have been entirely focused on the top end. I mean, you look at COVID. During COVID, again, like I've a vague grasp of the numbers, so I paint with broad strokes, right? It was something like one club development officer to 2 or 3 clubs pre-COVID. So there are hundreds of them up and down the countries. They're your liaison with the RFU. So anything you need from Central, that's who you went to, right? During COVID, all the people that worked in Twickenham HQ got furloughed. All the people that were CDOs got sacked off. So you lost all level of communications with your governing body. And then when they come back, suddenly the CDOs are looking after maybe 6, 7, 8 clubs, whereas before they were looking after 2 or 3. And it's kind of going, no, actually, you don't want to hear what's being said then. You don't want any level of communication. You don't want to offer that level of support. Like, it's just, it's so top-heavy, centrally minded. There's no one looking at the roots of it. And like you say, France has got 4 leagues. You go to France on a rugby match day, everyone in that town is wearing the colours, everyone's rolling in, stadium's big enough to look after them, and they will have a great time. And that's whether you're talking top end, Pro D2, whatever level you're looking at. We don't have that here. Football's got a sway on it here, fair enough. But there are more than enough rugby fans of both codes, not just rugby union. Rugby leagues are the same sort of place. There's more than enough fans that if you sort of looked at the commercial model properly, got the RFU out of the way, and just went, look, you just look after the Premiership, you do your thing, and we'll just set this up over here and run our own one, and we'll actually make it financially viable.
Yeah.
We'll get to a point where people invest in a club like they do in America, because the club's a commercial entity that makes money, as opposed to I'm just a massive rugby fan and I'm happy to, hide $2,000 of a tax bill into this rather than that. That's what needs to happen in my mind.
Yeah.
I had Russell Earnshaw on the other day as well. He was part of the RFU piece as well. Got sacked, and he's quite vocal around that and said there's a lot of people within their roles in the RFU that are more worried about losing them, and then there's other committees that have got to sign off stuff before it even gets near any sense. So the whole model's not agile enough to protect or improve the game. And until, as you say, that whole reshake is probably required, it's just going to keep going backwards. And the statement, as I referenced to earlier, I think it's quite apparent that they don't want to change it because they're either protecting their own investment or they're protecting the investors that are the ones that they think are the ones that are going to bring the game forward. Because I was listening to the Good Bad Rugby pod the other day, and they said about the PIF, which is obviously the Saudi Public Investment Fund. They're apparently in talks of funding 4 Premiership clubs currently, but that I think is probably at a detriment that if they had promotional relegation at risk, because funny enough, one of them is Newcastle, one of the others is Gloucester. So 2 of the teams right at the bottom are at risk of going, but are also under conversation with PIF at the minute. So there clearly other conversations happening. It's a bad state of affairs that rugby's having to have those conversations. And also on that Good Bad Rugby the other day, actually, that I've caught up with yesterday, actually, before, they said there's 800 million fans, rugby fans across the globe. So we've got double the amount of NFL fans. So apparently they reckon there's only 400 million NFL fans across the globe. We've got 800. I think we only return 1.6 billion on that investment or something like that of that turnover. I think rough figure was NFL return up 162 billion of 400 million fans.
Yeah.
You look at those numbers, it's quite clear there's something fundamental. We can't market what we've got in front of us. We've got a great product that everyone loves within the group, within that bubble, but we don't sell it to anyone. We don't.
No.
It literally, the rugby values and that model doesn't seem to want to expand out to the real world.
No, it's. I mean, it's madness. And obviously, those figures will be mildly, because when you look at the NFL, obviously it sits under one house, one roof. They make the rules and they make it work. And the Americans are brilliant at commercialising, and they're like, "This is what we're doing." You look at global rugby, you've got every bloody union under the sun, and they're all as sort of self-interested and in some ways parochial as each other. Like, it's all about looking after themselves and, you know, all that. So there is a level of, like, you're going to lose a bit because there's no unified approach. But yes, the game's an amazing game.
Yeah.
Everyone, like, the spread is massive. You know, loads of countries invested in it, loads of people enjoying it, and yet, yeah, can't pull a straight plan out between them. As I say, I mean, yeah, on all levels. I mean, I look at the whole concussion conversation, and you look at the RFU's reaction to that, because I was playing for Coventry a few years back, and they brought in the tackle, like, you know, we're going to bring down the tackle height to here. Mid-season, no warning. Well, say a couple of weeks warning.
Yeah.
And I said, you're going to get more lads knocked out from tackling low when they're not used to tackling low than you ever. No, we won't. The data says otherwise. I'm telling you now. A week later, I'm knocked out when I go low on a tackle I'm not used to making in training. Because you play at an instinctive level. Your reaction times are, you literally work on muscle memory. It's something you have to stop and think. Same reason golfers choke when they start thinking about life rather than just doing it. So that happened. The whole trial got called off after 2 weeks of this cup competition because it was so dangerous. So many people getting knocked out, right? Fast forward a couple of years. The data shows that it's not even the knockouts, it's the subconcussions that are killing people. So it's the amount of contact that you're doing that's actually causing the big problems in terms of CTE and early onset dementia. Concussions obviously aren't great for you, but actually the problem and the knocks that don't knock you out, and there's so many. So the real problem is the amount of contact training we're doing and then the amount of games we're playing. And if you look, you know, obviously the vast majority of people that are suffering with early onset dementia from all these knocks are the professional players, not the semi-pros and not the amateur game. Like, there's some, but most aren't. Because if you look at most rugby clubs up and down this country, their committee are lads in their 70s and 80s who played every day of their life from the age of 15 all the way up to 75 when they finally hung their boots up and haven't got a skit of memory loss between them. So it's like, no, the problem is the pro game. The RFU's response to the lawsuit coming over, because they could see money was about to go missing because the NFL got picked for it, so they knew they're probably going to be next. Their response is to cut the tackle height at every level bar professional. So you've taken a solution that doesn't even work anyway, and you're only applying it to the levels where it's not a problem. Like, why have they done that? Because
probably lost more players at grassroots.
Yeah, because of it. Because a load of us hung our boots up because we can't be arsed with it. And yet at the top level, because the spectacle of someone getting absolutely smacked, you know, top level, clean, like all the big hits we all love. Don't get me wrong, I grew up watching like Victor Matfield run into things, and you know, there's some big old horrible hits that happened and were wrong, but you know, especially I'm up in rugby league country, like the biff where you're throwing with someone's forearm, like part of the game, right? I'm not saying it should be. I'm just saying like that's kind of what we grew up with. You take that spectacle away, make everyone tack around the knee. Viewer numbers drop. And when you're looking for outside investment, you need an attractive game. So they've left the top end exposed. And like you say, let's add more games. Let's add more games into the league by chucking Japan and South Africa into cup competitions. So actually we're going to make it so you're playing for longer every year. So you're doing more contact than you were before. And you're not being, you know, there's no thought as to their care and all that. It's just, for the RFU, it's purely a money-making exercise, and they're failing at it. And the disconnect with proper rugby is what's killing the commercial side of it, because the engagement's dropping. They should be out there at every club promoting the values of rugby union, what it brings to people. You know, like I say, my life's like a poster for it. You know, I was a state school boy, got picked up, made good, had this life. You know, the respect it teaches you for authority. You know, the teamwork, camaraderie, all the amazing things that any rugby player will put their hand up to and say, yeah, that's why our fans all sit together without cages, without throwing things at each other, all that noise. None of it's being promoted. So now I'm dealing with people who, people I know got kids, want to start playing rugby, and they're going, it's a really dangerous game. There's lots of you getting knocked out a lot. I've seen this early onset dementia stuff. It's really dangerous. And I'm like, these rugby clubs have existed for hundreds of years. And this has only become a problem since we went professional in 95. So the problem's pro rugby. So one day, if he's looking at going pro, maybe have a think about it then. But until then, it'd be all right. And he's going to get a lot more good out of the game than he's losing. So, it just...
Yeah. It's not, as you said, that pitch, do you think the rugby brand is painted as... And people, unless you're part of rugby, you don't understand it, because I don't think as a group, as well as a rugby group of fans, we don't help push it outside the box enough. I think because a lot of us, because we're inside the bubble, we think it's massive. We try to let people in, but they're also probably put off by the time they come down a clubhouse and see the state of people in the clubhouse. Do you know what I mean? It was like, we've got our traditions, we've got our own little bubble, and we let people peek through the peephole a couple of times. And do you think, did we potentially put our best foot forward? Yes and no, depends on how perverse some people are, probably.
No, I know exactly what you mean, and it's because like that, our fans can sit together, and I said it, and I believe it, and it's like, it is a mild chat, but you think all the football fans are arrogant bunches, and fair, like there is a level of one-upmanship almost amongst that side of things, but rugby union is quite an esoteric game to get into, because I've put together 2 women's teams. I might be starting a third soon. And when you're working with people who've never played rugby union before, you realise just how many weird little intricacies there are in the game. And you realise just how much people have to learn, that if they've not grown up around it, it is quite tough to get your head around. I think the last World Cup did us wonders, or should have done us wonders, because some of those games, whether you knew what the hell was going on or not, was so entertaining to watch. And it was like a different style every weekend. When you look at the semi-finals, like 2 brilliant games of rugby, there's just been so many sort of different bits along the way, so many bits when it was just a fantastic advert for what the game of rugby union could be, but it is tough to get into. And then, as you say, you go down a rugby club, wearing your football shirt, you probably get sneered at a bit, and then you see people playing stupid drinking games, you think, not for me, this, and you disappear, so I get it. But what's really interesting, I think, it's a level of apathy, a level of complacency, because we've not had to grow the game in a while. Like, we've had all these clubs for hundreds of years. We've had the top end where they are. We've not had to really push, which is what's interesting when you then look at the girls' game, because they're having to grow, because they're, not every club has got a women's section, so it's something that's starting to come round. So they're actively having to recruit new players, new support, new managers, new fans, everything. They're really having to look at actually growing the game. So overall participation in rugby has gone down massively in the last few years post-COVID, but the level of sort of female participation has gone through the roof. And you go in because they're trying, because they want to, because they don't have the stupid old school mentality of, we're not helping them down the road, we've been fighting them for centuries. It's like, who cares? Like, we're all in rugby together. Let's remember what an amazing game it is and what it brings us, and take back to more people. So I just think we've got lazy with it. I think we need to realise it needs to be open.
Jumping back to you at the complacency piece there, do you think the RFU is still riding on the 2003 World Cup win and thinking that's still got enough weight and gravitas behind it? Because we had a massive boom after 2003. I think they're potentially hoping 2019 would have obviously had the return as well, and obviously the missing out on the semis against South Africa. Do you think there's certain people probably still sat in the RFU thinking they've got credit in the bank from the 2003 World Cup win?
I think there's still people sat in the FA still thinking they've got credit in the bank for the 1966 World Cup win.
Exactly. It's just, it's an English way, isn't it? Like, let's just. There's probably people still thinking about. 1066, probably still Battle of Hastings or something like that. It's still Rishi
I'll say
Sunak's
that's
probably going to pull that one out of the bag, isn't he?
Yeah, no, it is. I think there is a level of that, and as you say, when you say 29, when you look, I mean, it seeps all the way through in my mind, because if you look at that, just the lead into the final. So England, South Africa in the final, right?
Yeah.
And you watch the videos, sort of that coming into the game. And obviously we turned up late. I think there'd been some weird traffic. We'd missed something, or something had gone slightly wrong anyway. But we absolutely tore the Kiwis to shred in the semi-finals. Like, one of the best games of rugby I've probably ever seen in my entire life was that semi-final against New Zealand.
Unreal, absolutely unreal.
Glorious. Was like this team could go on and win anything they want. Like, they've got everything they need. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then you watched it, and it was like, right, lads, think of our history. If the game was born here, we should be winning this. Isn't this great? Oh, bring the cup home.
Yeah.
Love it. And then it cuts to South Africa, and they're showing these, the lads running up the townships. They're showing just the joy on people's faces that they've got. Closey sat there as the captain. They've got, the most diverse team they've ever had, the best team. Like, what it meant to that nation to win that World Cup was everything. Like, it was, ride or die time. Yeah. It was like they were going to win that World Cup, and they were going to come home in a box. Like, they just didn't care. It was like, we are winning this. And that passion, that absolute let through. When you've got a union that's all sat there very much like, no, we won this before. We're almost entitled to win this one now. We've done this. It's like, it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
And I just think the core's rotten. And that we need to either rip the core out and start with a new one, or just, that's it. I think that's the only way you can do it. In my mind, I think the RFU's got to have a serious word with itself, or we've got to leave it behind.
Yeah, I don't think World Rugby probably helps. Obviously, Bill Beaumont's in charge of both, basically, isn't he? So I think you've either got to have World Rugby completely independent. You can't have somebody at the top of both.
No.
I just don't know. Don't know. It's there's so many. So many bits that we could probably pull out from NFL as well, as you said. American football adds so much. Do you think a draft system and like a centralised contract would work within rugby to help grow that? And then would that then be able to support a valid championship model, because more players would be available on a centralised contract? They could go and they not have them as sort of development squads, but there'd be X amount of development players allowed to go to sort of, there's a clear path to make these a progression from Nat 1, and then you got Nat 1 Championship and the Prem. You had 3 leagues, and then there was a clear divisional path of this draft you were able to draft, and if you finish bottom, or you obviously get relegated, the new league, new teams that come up would be able to get first pick, and that. Do you think that would add a certain level of excitement to rugby and a bit more of a marketable piece?
I think it could. I do think it could. The problem you've got, and again, to me, it goes down to groundswell. And I think it's a perspective thing that I don't think everyone quite understands, right? When you're watching these American football games, American football films, and you hear, which is the college that's got, they run out to Enter the Sandman by Metallica. Is it Notre Dame? Is it then?
Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
They'll run out and they slap that thing, and you look at the whole crowd, and the whole crowd's going absolutely apeshit. There's like more than 100,000 people in there. They're all doing it. They're banging their arms. Yeah. How the bloody thing stands, I don't know. There's so many people jumping up and down. Like, that's a well-constructed thing, right? These are college kids.
Yeah.
16-year-olds.
Yeah.
We don't get that level of support at Twickenham.
Mad.
Right? And it's that. So when you've got that number of kids coming through the educational system who have all know that the NFL is if they play college ball and if they get into this thing, they get that point average at school, they can get a scholarship, they go to that college, they'll get into that team.
Yeah.
That means that they'll be in the draft, and then they'll get into the NFL, and then that's like you said, that pipeline's so clear. In this country, state schools don't really play rugby. I know there are plenty that do, but it's not like every team does it. Every college in America has American football. I'd put it to you, whereas I don't think every rugby.
Yeah.
Most public schools do.
Well, most of the teachers have probably never played rugby as well in state schools. It's just part of the curriculum. So they've just been told there's a ball, read this bit of paper, make sure they don't clash heads, don't kick the football unless you're playing 10, and that's about it. They don't understand the game. There's no passion or development. As you said, every NFL film that you watch, they've got a coach that's made this player become this because he's made there's that sort of Hollywood film piece around it. You don't get any of that with rugby. When was the last rugby film that come out that wasn't made by rugby fans about sort of a nation? Like obviously you've got Rising Sun, which has been done about South Africa, etc., etc. Swing Low was obviously the one back in the day, but there's not one that can be marketed to the masses. There's no crossover from our little bubble to the rest of the world.
No, but it should be, because there are some amazing players. There's some amazing stories. There's, even like saying, I'm in rugby league country now, right? And obviously, like Rob Burrow died at the weekend. It's like the story of Rob Burrow, what he's been through, where he's been, the bits he's done are huge. And everything that's gone on with Kev Sinfield around the outsides of it. And obviously, Kev's then stepped across into England. So there's so much. One of the questions you sent over, one of the best coaches you've ever worked with, Sean Edwards, hands down, one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. And it's like rugby unions learn so much from rugby league, and could learn more. I've had a lot of very good rugby league coaches in my rugby union career. Like, I think there's so much rugby has to offer, and when you watch. I was working at what was York City Knights at the time when they had the men's and women's team, and you'd have people coming into the stadium early for the men's game. The women's game would be on. Oh, women playing rugby league, because it's still quite old school in some people's mindsets. Every time someone gets hit, every time there's a big hit, you convert 20 people. Because to me, that's what Prem football misses for me. Like when I watch some of the older football games, when you watch like local league football, people clattering each other, right? It's great. I love playing football, and I love watching people play football properly. The women's game is much more physical than the men's game.
Yeah.
When you look at how the Lionesses play, get the crap out of football. Great to watch. I don't need sports with contact. I just need contact sports with contact, right? So you can't tell me there's not people in this country that would turn up to watch rugby if it was more welcoming, more available, and people knew where it was. One of the weirdest things up here, and again, like a Leeds special, this. So Headingley Stadium's about 16,000 people again. And when Leeds were last in the Premiership, you got about 8,000 fans would turn up, right? And they'd say, another complacency piece, right? Well, there's not as many rugby union fans in Leeds. Okay. But when the two local unis, when Leeds Beckett and Union Leeds play their varsity game in the same stadium, and you literally have a sellout, there's clearly more than enough, because that's just the students. That's not, and don't get me wrong, not all of them massive rugby fans. But what I'm saying is if you put something on that appeals, you can find them. And those 8,000 people, only about 1,000 of them would have been students. So there's clearly more than enough rugby union groundswell in Leeds to get Headingley Stadium full. The country's the same. Like I was saying, I was sat at bloody Tottenham Hotspur Stadium looking at 30,000 Gloucester fans in London. Hearing them on the tube is one of the best things I've ever been involved in. Because that accent on a lost traveller in London is glorious. Follow him, he looks like a rugby boy. Like that, it was just amazing, right? Yeah. So, it's that like, we've got people, the people want to come, the people like the game, and the more people that see it, it's a great game to watch. We know and love it, right? It needs to open itself up more. But when the governing body of the sport is so old school, so complacent, so unwelcoming to people. They literally make it hard to put a team together. They make it hard to support. They make it hard to watch. They just make it hard. It's like no wonder.
Yeah,
no wonder. So that to me is the thing. It's not that there's a lack of interest. It's just that there's a lack of opportunity, given what we've been given to work with. And as I say, that's where my plans to sort of start helping out with grassroots teams and helping them find their own funding, helping them turn their system round. So that then becomes profitable. Everyone then learns, we all then grow, and suddenly we can throw the RFU off and be like, well, you take your league, you do what you need to, and you go the way. And then you've got the players and the interest and the support. So when you then put a draft on, people want to watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched a film the other day.
Do you think that's where we start?
Yeah. I mean, they literally have films about the draft. It was a great film as well. Kevin Costner, brilliant.
People can get involved in that as well. You can sit there, you can watch the draft, you can be interactive with it, everything, can't you?
We as the RFU had any sense, right? Get rid of the old wood that don't want to do it, and then fly out to America, sit with the NFL, and go, how do we do this? Because if you look at the figures you stated there, and this isn't because I make no bones about it. I play American football now. I've done for a couple of years, right? I do it because it's a great game to play. It's fun. I get to wear body armour where I play rugby with a gum shield and a set of boots. I don't just wear tape. I don't have shoulder pads. I literally play as I come, and then I play something where I'm basically Superman. It's glorious, right? I love it. I do not think that the NFL is the greatest thing ever. I don't sit here going, it's what everyone should base all sport on. I'm not a fanatic, is the point I'm trying to make. But if you're trying to work out how to commercialise a sport, then they've got every aspect of that league nailed. They know where the people are coming from. They know how to drive the support. Like you say, all the interactions, all the different levels. They are constantly looking, how do I make more money from this? Because it's a business. And to say the owners of American football franchises make so much money out of their investments. Whereas here, it is literally a sinkhole for your profit. It's like, that's got to change. If we want the game to grow, that's got to change. It's got to be an attractive thing.
Every Premier League team is losing money each year. And that's supposed to be the pinnacle of our sport in this country. It says it all. Do you think that's where we potentially start? Do you think leave the RFU, leave the upper leagues? Do you sort of try and target that school system, do similar to a college model, invest in that and create a growth path that has a progression path, and trying to invest into something that's already sinking? Do you start investing into that grassroots level and have a clear path and create a separate system? Do you think that's potentially where we've got to go and completely leave what's there? Potentially, maybe even use the championship as the sort of the pinnacle as part of that investment piece, but actually take it back to as far back as the schools and the colleges and stuff, and make that hype and that generation of people that want to be part of the game and that spectacle that's available.
I think it's going to be tough because obviously the visibility for the players isn't there unless you play for England. The England are an RFU team, so if you're going to try and do it without the RFU, you're losing a lot of your top ambassadors straight off the outset. There's also a lot of history in those clubs, and there's someone who's lived his life around all those. It's a very hard thing to turn around and go, well, fuck all that, we'll go build our own. The problem in anything, though, whoever sat at the top of something, they're benefiting, they ain't going to change much. And the RFU at the minute are doing well enough that they're sat there and ain't going to change much.
No.
So to be able to go back to the public school that produced Bill Beaumont and ask them to change the way they're doing something, they probably ain't going to listen because they've probably still got his name and his shirts and all the rest of it. So it's going to be a tough system to crack.
Yeah.
For me, going to grassroots clubs, like I've got a big association up here with Wetherby Rugby Club. So when I moved up here, that's where I started coaching. I was, rocked up as a young professional rugby player, looking to get my coaching badges and use the ones I'd already got. what can I do? I coached every team from the 14s up to the first team, back down to the Colts, and then set the women's team up. Like I've been involved with that club a long time. I'm very proud of it. And outside of my grassroots club being Biggleswade, where I grew up playing all my rugby, just outside of Bedford. That's my heart and soul. That's my club. But Wetherby are my second home, right? If we go to a club like that, that's got it right. You know, they just got promoted into Northeast. They've just come out of the Yorkshire Leagues, just been promoted into the Northeast Leagues, and in their starting 15, nice. I think they're starting 15, 13 are homegrown players. Which you think any club of any level anywhere, 13 or 15 are their own. They're Wetherby boys that have been through the juniors and mini sections. So that's massive, right? That's a club that's got it right. Yes. If we can get more people looking at it like that, if we can get investment around that, and some of the people that support that club, all the people involved in that, if we get that right, and that becomes a club that turns a profit, suddenly people in the local area taking notice. You then go, right, let's apply the same model. Let's look at this. Let's get the juniors and the minis in. Let's get it so there's boys and girls playing. Let's get it so you've got a women's team. You know, obviously you need the land, you need the space, and some of the clubs don't have all the space they need, but let's work together on that, because there's plenty of people looking for, CSR opportunities, businesses out there with land sat there going, what can we do with this? It's got to make sense from a commercial front. Yeah, that's the one thing in all of it. If you can make it make sense commercially, the rest will follow. And it's like, I don't think you're going to turn the RFU around. And public schools know what they're about and do what they do. And while there's some lovely people working in both, there's also some real intransigent people in there. I think if you start with grassroots, if you work with those boys from all the way up from there, like you say, all the way up to the champ, I reckon the middle could step out and just sort of run its own direction then, and then sort of say, well, look, that's what we're doing, that's how we've done it, and then it's up to the RFU to listen or not. So that's how I'd go about it. It's kind of how I am going about it.
Yeah, definitely.
I've gone full mutiny.
Brilliant, and that's why. That's it. That's why we got you on, Charlie. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. We could go on with this for hours, and I think there's probably at least a round two on this on another day, because I think there's so many more rocks that we could potentially lift and go on, mate. So obviously, once the front row support gathers a bit more pace as well, mate, it'd be great to get you back on and see what we've done and what you've been able to. Who you've helped and where the next plans are, mate. So I can't thank you enough for coming on today, mate. And I'm sure everyone that's listened to the pod has really appreciated your time as well.
Thanks very much.
Well, that brings this pod to an end. If you made it this far, I just want to take a moment to thank you for listening right through and express my gratitude for following yet another episode of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. So, in today's episode, we spoke with Charlie Beech, the founder of Front Row Support, where he's actively trying to support players' exits from their current sporting professions. We also discuss his great career across the rugby spectrum and the eye-opening cost that it is for players to drop down through the leagues to carry on being pro or semi-pro players. We really set the world to rights on this one, so I really enjoyed this pod today. Next week, we have our first interview with two other guests. We managed to get Will Knight and Oz on from Havant Rugby Club, where we finally opened the door to their recent successes and where the club can and wants to go in the future. This was a great rugby chat, even though it's a shame to see a club down the road doing so well, especially from a Gosport Boys point of view. Once again, a huge thank you to you all. Thank you and goodbye.